Well, here we are in another week of covering different self publishing platforms, and this has been fun, very eye opening. I've done a lot more deeper research. So, if I've talked about some of these companies in the past, you're probably wondering, why am I talking about them again? Because, as you know, nothing changes at all, ever, right? And I say that sarcastically. It's always changing here in the business of self-publishing, so that's why I want to keep you abreast of all the different companies they have to offer. And one of them is an aggregate publishing platform called Streetlib, based out of Italy. This company is definitely one of those that I consider a very viable Amazon KDP alternative that you need to know about. We're going to talk about that in today's podcast, so make sure that you stay tuned. And of course, you know, as per usual, for over 2 years now, I've shared my video on demand service, theselfpublishinghub.com. Now, when I launched this platform, I wanted to give indie authors an affordable way to learn the self-publishing business. Unlike other premium courses from popular authors and content creators, I made my courses just $10 per month. Why buy lifetime access to something you're only going to watch like once or twice for it to collect the digital dust, or for that matter, change, as I kind of mentioned here at the beginning of the hour here. So if you've been looking for more detailed information of the world of self-publishing without the huge cost of admission, then consider subscribing to theselfpublishinghub.com for only $9.99 per month. It's a pretty good bargain. Remember, it's the one, the only, theselfpublishinghub.com. Alrighty, I'm kind of geeked up today to cover a platform that I've been kind of eyeballing here for quite a while now. And I had opened myself up an account some time ago. But more recently, actually this past year, I had the pleasure of speaking to the U.S. ambassador for Streetlib, Julie Trelstad. Now, Julie was just an absolute great guest, a superstar, and I anticipate she'll be back here on the podcast. But we really didn't go too granular on those things. I still recommend you go over, watch the interview, because she does provide a lot more context than some of the stuff that I'm going to mention in today's podcast here. Now, this company was established in 2006. It's an aggregate publishing platform, meaning that they will publish your book to other retail platforms on your behalf in exchange for a cut of the revenue. Now, they're based in Italy, as I'd mentioned, and they offer author services, book distribution, and digital publishing solutions. Now, I'm not going to go into the author services sides of things, so if for some reason you're an author that's looking to publish your book and you feel very overwhelmed and you want somebody else to do it for you, then Streetlib might be the ones to consider doing that for. Now, remember, they're not going to do it 100% free. It does come at a premium, but something to think about. I'm not going to tap into the author services, though, because that's just a windy road, and I have no personal experience on that one. So just look into that. If you're new to self-publishing or new to Streetlib, maybe this is something that you would like to consider. Now, they do distribute ebooks, paperback books, and audiobooks. There's not too many platforms that do this. In fact, the only one off the top of my head right now is Publish Drive. And Publish Drive is a different aggregate publishing platform that I've covered here in the past. And they function on a subscription-based model where you pay X amount of dollars per month for X amount of books to distribute through them. And then you get 100% of the net profits. However, with Streetlib actually distributes it for you, and they take a chunk of the revenue. Now, I want to cover each one of those aspects one at a time because it gets a little complex. So let's go into ebooks first. Now, they have quite an array of distribution. I'm telling you, it's very wide, but it's somewhat limited. Hang in there, though, because I don't want you to immediately dismiss them and think, well, oh, they got limited distribution. It's probably not worth my time. It's limited, but not in the way you would think. And also, that limitation might go away in due time. Now, they have over 39 online retailers, library distributors, and subscription-based services. You can pick or deselect ones based on your needs. So meaning that it's not an all or nothing situation, kind of like what they do with Ingram Spark, where it's just like, you want to distribute your ebooks, it's everything or nothing at all. And, I've never cared for that. I think it's really awesome that Streetlib offers that ability. Now, they do accept two file types, an EPUB and one I've never heard before. It's KF8. Maybe that's something that's Italy based. I've never heard of KF8 before. But EPUB, gold standard among ebooks, so you can literally get it formatted any way you wish. And by the way, something I didn't put in my notes and I forgot to mention, I'm just going to go ahead and mention it now. Streetlib does have their own form of software for formatting and such, and I believe it's called Streetlib Write. And that might come at a premium, but my apologies, I didn't get that one inside my notes. Just take a look into Streetlib Write, and that might be something that would be a good fit for you. So in the event that you need to do an EPUB, that's one of the ways you can do it. Or you can go through platforms like Google Docs, Max Pages will do it as well. And of course, big shout out to one of my viewers, brought up Calibre or Calibre, however you want to say it, Calibre, and that's 100% free open source software, and it's fairly intuitive, and there's tons of tutorials online. So if you need to learn how to format for EPUB, you got it that way. Now, as far as royalties go for ebooks, it's 70% of net revenues. So I got to break this one down here because a lot of people get confused. They're like, oh, it's a 70-30 split. This is fantastic. This is great. Like, you know, that's comparable to something like KDP. It is, but it doesn't necessarily isn't, okay? Net revenues is the key word here, or sometimes I say net profits. So because they're an aggregate publishing platform and you're not paying anything up front, they're taking 30% of what comes into you through the sales on each one of those platforms. Now, Streetlib has worked out an agreement with each one of these retailers and library systems and subscription-based systems to where you're getting paid a royalty through them. So they're going to get their cut. Then the remainder of the money comes in, and then they take an additional 30% of that revenue. And by the way, I'm going to probably mention it again anyways. Audiobook sales work the same way as 70%. But print books, it's a little bit more complex. In fact, I'm going to really dive deep here into the paperbacks because I find it very fascinating because, again, there's not many of these aggregate publishing models that have print books, audiobooks, and ebooks available. So it's really nice. And I recall, the paperbacks and audiobooks are relatively new to Streetlib's platform. I would say within the last 4 to 5 years. I could be wrong. I could be speaking out of turn on this one, but either way, it's relatively new to me at least. Now, it does require a €49 activation fee, so meaning that you have to pay $49 per print book that you want to distribute through them. I don't know of any kind of special codes or kickbacks or anything else like that. I'm sure maybe there's some out there. I would bet that a lot of that has to do with offsetting some of the costs that they have internally to distribute through their print-on-demand vehicles. So now they have 8 different companies that do their print-on-demand. Now it's primarily Italy-based, and that's where I mentioned before that there is limitations to Streetlib. Now, this is where I say it's not too limited because they actually reach Amazon. In fact, they reach 8 of Amazon's region in the US, Italy, of course, Canada, UK, Spain, France, the Netherlands, and Germany are the regions that you can reach. So if you want to forego Amazon KDP and go straight over to Streetlib, you could still be able to hit the Amazon platform. Now, publishing your paperback book with a Streetlib ISBN code gives you the option to deselect Amazon distribution and Streetlib channels. But what they wanted you to know is this will allow you to not distribute to these channels. However, it's important to note that you cannot deselect national distribution, which is turned on by default for each publication. So it's a little bit more problematic. If you run into questions or concerns, contact them in support or go into their community. I've got a link to their community inside the show notes that you can go and take a look at it. I've been a part of their community. It's nice. It's really good. You have a lot of answers real quick there. Now, as far as the trim sizes goes for the print on demand, they have 13 different trim sizes, but it is paperback book only, and you can do it in black and white or full color. The paper types they have available are white in 80 GSM or cream in 70 GSM, which is fairly comparable to the other print-on-demand vehicles. Now, the high-quality white paper is 135 GSM. For color books, all right, if you're doing full color, they're obviously going to need something a bit thicker. So that way your books aren't arriving looking waterlogged because there's way too much color being put on it. So they have 115 GSM, which is ideal for books that contain mainly text, but also images, especially graphic elements or illustrations. And then there's 135 GSM, which is recommended for print books containing mainly images and photographs. Now, they have covers in matte or glossy finish. Perfect. Now, here's the nice thing is, I'd mentioned real briefly about the ISBNs. You can get a free assigned ISBN through Streetlib, and you can also bring your own ISBN. Now, in their words, though, with the ISBNs, pay closest attention to this one. This is interesting. We recommend utilizing the Streetlib ISBN code to access the national distribution channel, since it's not possible to distribute your book on this channel using your own ISBN. So this is fairly interesting that having your own ISBN does hinder you. So I'm thinking that that charge that they give you, the 49 euro charge that they give per print title, probably offsets the cost for the ISBNs that you're getting. Now, I don't know, I'm not completely against using somebody else's ISBN, but here's the limitation when you get something like that. Sure, you've paid the 49 euros, but at the end of the day, the ISBN is still owned and run by Streetlib. To my knowledge, you can't take that ISBN anywhere else, whereas with your own ISBN, you can. So, let's transition over to another area here, the royalty. Now, I got to go with in their words here again, because I have to say verbatim. When selling a paper book, they call it a paper book, through print on demand, the purchase is made at the cover price set by the author publisher. For each copy sold, the author or publisher's earnings are calculated net of these costs. First of all, the sales commission. This ranges from 45 to 51% of the cover price, excluding VAT, which is value-added tax over in the European countries here, folks, depending on the distribution channel, which is online store, wholesaler, or physical library. The next option to kind of consider is Streetlib distribution commission. This starts from 10% of the cover price, excluding, of course, value-added tax. And last but not least is the print fees, which is the print cost. This varies and depends a lot on the characteristics of the book. Primarily, page count typically is how it works out. So there are so many things to kind of consider when it comes to the paperback books. I'm a little reluctant to distribute them, especially since if I'm coming with my own ISBN, it's going to limit my reach. So chances are very likely, personally speaking, I would probably leverage Streetlib for ebooks and audiobooks only, at least until they can kind of iron things out with their print books. Now let's transition over into audiobooks. This is super exciting. This is something that they have a leg up on a platform like, say, KDP. Sure, KDP is offering the digital narration that they have through there, but it's through beta, closed beta only, and you have to be invited to something like that. Whereas with Streetlib, it's automatically available to everybody. There's 14 retailers, libraries, and subscription-based services. Now, you get 70% of net revenues, as I had previously mentioned with the ebooks. It works pretty much the same. Just remember that based on the agreement that Streetlib did for each one of these retailers or platforms that are selling your books, it's going to be a percentage. You're going to get 70% of the sale that's coming, the net profits that come back from that specific sale. I know what I'm talking about most of the time here. Same specs as a place like Audiobook Creation Exchange and other audiobook retail platforms, so nothing out of the ordinary. So if you happen to be non-exclusive through ACX and you're leveraging something like Findaway Voices or looking for an alternative to Findaway Voices, then Streetlib could possibly be the option that you're looking for. Now, how does Streetlib pay? They do it 3 different ways: bank transfer and Payoneer or PayPal. Now, technically, Payoneer is kind of like a bank transfer, but I'm not going to nickel and dime you guys here. The bank transfer, you need to have at least $30 as a minimum for a payout. And then for Payoneer and PayPal, you have to have $10 as a minimum. They will pay you 30 days after the close of the month, although they do mention that some retailers are a little bit more delayed in their reports, so it sometimes can be 60 days after the close of the month. Meaning that if it's 30 days after the close of the month, I make a sale January 17th, then I will get paid in late February. If I make a sale on one of those random platforms in January 17th, then it probably won't be until late March. So just keep in mind all those minimum thresholds as well when you're getting paid out. It's definitely something worth thinking about. Now, the other notable perks when it comes to Streetlib, there are so many to kind of think about. I had already mentioned Streetlib Write is one of their native formatting tools that they have available for ebooks. I don't know if they do it for print books. I'd imagine they do, but I don't want to speak out of turn on that one. Streetlib Community is something that's brand new. I think it's at community.streetlib.com. I've got a link to that one. Highly recommend pop into there. It's not super active, but it is a great platform to kind of get your questions answered and be able to talk directly with people that are in and around Streetlib, whether they're staff or their support or they're just other authors. Great place to kind of look into. Now, they're also looking to expand further into the U.S. Yeah, I said there were some limitations, but in a recent interview with Julie Trelstad, the U.S. ambassador for Streetlib, we come to find out that they are looking to really push beyond just Italy. So yeah, they're very much cemented in there, but in due time, I do foresee them reaching out to other regions. So definitely keep an eye on them. And also they have special niche specific promos based on distribution. So if for some reason you are distributing through Streetlib and you have your book going to Kobo or Apple, they will notify you sometimes through their community or through their email notifications about specific promos based on the distribution and the niche that they're looking for, and sometimes the sale amount. So keep an eye on those type of things. I've stayed subscribed to Streetlib and I found them very, very useful, very insightful newsletters for sure. Hey, as we start to wrap things up here, if you've been looking for more detailed information in the world of self-publishing without the huge cost of admission, then consider subscribing to my video on demand service, theselfpublishinghub.com, for only $9.99 per month. Remember, it's the one, the only, theselfpublishinghub.com. Now, here are my final thoughts. Streetlib is a viable option to consider beyond Amazon KDP because, well, they reach other areas. Not to mention, if you're kind of fed up with some of the shenanigans that are involved with Kindle Direct Publishing, then this is probably the avenue for you to consider. Heaven forbid if for some reason you got wrongly terminated or suspended from KDP and you're looking for another avenue that could potentially reach Amazon, then Streetlib might be the option for you. And they continue to grow. I've been following them for a couple years and continue to see them expanding what they have to offer. This is very encouraging and shows that you're not just going to set up shop for them to go ahead and close things down and then you're stuck with looking for another place to do. And the only catch that I really hang up I don't like is the 49 euros activation fee for a print title. Would love to see that one waived, but I understand if they need to offset those costs with them being a smaller aggregate publishing platform, chances are very likely they're putting that in place so that way they don't go broke in distributing print books. Now, I'm sure there's probably going to be some people, do they publish no content or low content books? You're going to have to ask support that, jump into their community and ask them. I don't think they would, since they're very similar to Draft to Digital, but I could be wrong and speaking out of turn. And they excel in ebooks and audiobooks right now. To me, I feel like that's where they are strongest. And I anticipate seeing them grow stronger even more in audiobook distribution as time goes on. And, the recent shenanigans with Findaway Voices changing their terms of use and becoming a lot more questionable, some people are probably looking to some alternatives for something like Findaway Voices. Maybe consider Streetlib. That might be your option. What are your thoughts about Streetlib? Have you tried them out? What were your thoughts? Did you like them? Let me know over inside the Discord community at dalelinks.com/Discord. Hey, this next week, we're going to be tapping into a platform that I had a good opinion about them, and then I did a print book comparison series where I did not have a good opinion about them. They're Blurb Books. How do they compare to Kindle Direct Publishing? Well, believe it or not, Blurb Books has changed quite a bit over the past couple of years, and you're going to want to learn a little bit more about what's going down with Blurb Books and if it's the appropriate fit for you. Till later, this has been Self-Publishing with Dale, and I'll catch you folks next week.